What is the alternative explanation? I mean, if you're examining another theory other than the one that the investigation concluded was simply that the North Tower came down, fires were set off in Tower 7, and then it eventually collapsed, what is the other theory which we should give more credence to?
I don't know. I don't know that the onus is on me or anyone who seeks the truth about what happened to come up with an alternative theory. The onus is on federal authorities to explain why, for example, they never investigated it. Why, for example, the rubble and the steel from that building was carted off within hours and sent out of the country to Asia. Why, for example, an analysis done not by kooks, but by chemists found traces of explosive material in the dust from that day. Why structural engineers who have kind of no skin in this game came to the conclusion that that just couldn't happen based on all available evidence. And
oh my God, this is like, this is just making the hair on the back of my neck stand up, like they say, because these are all things that were so pertinent in the conversation in the early years after 9/11. Like I said, they talked about the rubble being cleaned up within days, sent to China. They talked about the steel frame had traces of thermite, right, and other explosive materials. They talked about all of that. And it's pretty crazy to me right now to see a Tucker Carlson talk about this. This is a guy back then who, you know, all the mainstream media did not talk like this back in 2003, 4, 5. During the years of the Iraq War, the aftermath of 9/11, nobody in mainstream talked about this. The only time you had conversation like this was if you watched Loose Change and any of those other documentaries that were independently produced on YouTube at the time. And YouTube had just come out. YouTube came out in 2005? I was watching Loose Change in 2006. And nobody in mainstream media talked like this about those basic things. Nobody talked about WTC7. It was like, you know, it was forbidden. You know what I'm saying? So to see, again, I'm really laughing here because over time you think people forget about things, but sometimes time can make people forget, and it can also make people more bold and to want to seek the truth and be more free to seek the truth. So this is refreshing to see someone who comes from mainstream media actually talk about this now. Tucker Carlson ain't a nobody. So for him to be talking like this, he's talking like he's in Loose Change. And this is wild.
That none of that is addressed at all or even mentioned in the 9/11 report. So, and there are all kinds of anomalies, as I know that you're fully aware, and there are possible explanations to explain all of them. For example, the BBC report on air saying the building had fallen when it hadn't fallen yet. There are all sorts of reasons to wonder, like, what the hell is this? But it's not incumbent on us to provide explanation. It's incumbent on the people running the government and running the supposed investigation into this to tell us, like, what was that? And
oh man, the world, man, I'm telling you, listen, he's so right. I remember that too. When the BBC announced that World Trade Center 7 had fallen before it fell. That's weird. That's strange, right? And Larry Silverstein, the owner of the complex, later on, the recordings of him talking about him saying what he told the firefighters, that we should go ahead and pull it. And pull it is a demolition term. When you're going to just, demolish something, they pull it, right? But he was saying that he told the firefighters to, quote unquote, pull it and come out of the building. So this is like really important information that I think that you got to remember. You got to remember that this is 24 years ago. So a lot of the people, the millennials and Gen Zers, some weren't born. And yeah, a lot of them just weren't born. But the people who are in their 20s now and even in their 30s were not born or were really young, and they may not really be, really adept to what was happening as far as these little details. So these details are going to spark. It's going to open up Pandora's box for people to start digging, and people aren't going to let go of these little details. These are little details that I thought time was going to wash away and people would never talk about, but they're things that stuck with me over the years. And it's going to be interesting because people are going to start talking about this again.
Look, I have a very open mind. The reason I'm interested to watch your documentary series, I have a genuinely open mind, and actually, it's been I would say it's been more opened generally about this kind of thing since the COVID pandemic. That I was too, I think, credulous about what the authorities were saying through the pandemic to my detriment. You and I have had this conversation. So I'm actually have a very open mind about this. I mean, on the specifics, for example, the BBC report you mentioned was based on a false Reuters report that they retracted soon afterwards and said it shouldn't have gone out. And the building, you could see the building behind the BBC journal. So it was obviously ludicrous. CNN did the same thing. But having been in the news game as you have, on big breaking news stories, fog of war stuff happens. And if it was a genuine error by Reuters, okay. I remember, for example, just as a comparison, I remember being on air at CNN when the hurricane came through, Hurricane Sandy burst through Manhattan. If you were probably a Fox then, or is the stuff that you're talking about in relation to CIA and suggestion anywhere of an inside job, or is the stuff that you're talking about in relation to CIA and the fascinating details of these two people in particular they were following, is that more cock-up than conspiracy? In other words, was it a gigantic cock-up that after bin Laden had already had one go at the World Trade Center, that there was just not a collective effort by the CIA, by FBI, by other intelligence agencies around the world to stop him succeeding with a second attempt? So is it cock-up, or do you think there is merit to suggestion that some people somewhere must have known more than we've been told?
Well, we know that people did know more than we've been told. I mean, somebody shorted the airlines and a bunch of the banks that were affected. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory.
Oh man. Let me. Oh my God, this is crazy. Like I said, I haven't really been dwelling on this stuff with 9/11 in a long time, but it's a lot. It's a lot. That's so true. People have to realize, man, if you go down the list, if you go down the list of all the strange things that happened with 9/11, you almost have to be like, man, there's no way the official story is true, right? And it was either an inside job or they let it happen. Like Tucker said, people knew, someone knew what was going to happen, and that's just another example. Again, like someone shorted the airlines. So if you don't know what a short is when you do what you call a put option, right? So in stock, you can buy the stock, or you can bet. You're basically making a bet on whether the stock will go up or go down. That's called an option, right? It's an option contract. So you're not buying the stock, but you're buying an option to buy the stock at a certain price or sell the stock at a certain price.